We've been waiting all off season to be able to do this. The winners and losers of the off season. What I've done is I've highlighted most of the key brands, and then I've pulled out their key movements.
Okay.
So who they've signed, who they've lost, so on and so forth. And we'll just discuss, are they a winner this off season or a loser? Some of them are kind of like, meh, kind of just did what you need to do. So
yeah,
I guess they technically won. But we'll start with Innova. They're one of the companies that I'm like, man, just kind of did what you need to do. They gained Emerson Keith.
About signing.
And they extended basically everyone else.
Yeah.
I was going through and I didn't see any like key losses. They didn't have a lot of key players up. Some of them come up next year. But basically they signed a ton of people to 1-year extensions and they picked up Emerson Keith.
Innova they're not like other companies. Because if they were any other company and we saw that, well, they've got, Sexton and Jerem on the payroll, but like Calvin's their big guy. We might have thought to ourselves like, oh, they could be in the market for like a big signing, but we just don't think that about Innova.
No.
But Innova is doing everything according to their plan. So
the other key
I guess
thing
they're a winner.
We were just talking about for the last a long time of Edge and all of that. Innova is directly tied to all of that. So Innova does do a lot with like. Yeah. A lot of times when PE classes and stuff are going on, they got Innova discs in their hands. Mm-hmm. And like stuff like that, you don't need pros.
So far, Innova has been on the right side of history. We'll see if it continues.
Yeah, but I think they win this offseason. Emerson Keith could be a good signing. He had a win last year. He's a solid player.
Yeah. Keeping
their team deep and
just
keeping
the fact
players
that they
happy.
Still have Calvin.
Yeah.
That does a lot for him.
Now, Discraft, they signed Hannah Wynn and picked up Chris Clemens. Mm-hmm. They extended Aaron Gossage, Andrew Presnell, Ben Calloway, Holland Hanley, Paige Shue, Andrew Fish, Missy Gannon, and seemingly Paige Pierce because her contract was supposed to be up this year. She's still pushing and promoting Discraft, and we haven't heard anything about her leaving or about her re-signing. So there might have been some type of extension that just was never announced.
Yeah, no,
but she is clearly still with Discraft. So the only player I really saw they lost was Chandler Fry.
They are a winner, and Discraft is a company that is able to every year. They have a massive team and so many names, and every year they are. Because did you say Holland Hanley? Because I think she got
extended her.
Every year they're able to keep their players, and a lot of them just get 1-year deals. They just keep them along. Like they're just able to they must be good to play for Discraft. They enjoy being there. So that is why they're successful. And they didn't make a splash signing, but they have so many guys being able to extend Gossage. Chris Clemens is a great signing.
Yeah.
So I would say they're not massive winners, but like that's a great offseason.
They did what they had to do this offseason.
Yeah.
They won. For sure, Discraft's a winner. And I mean, losing Chandler Fry, realistically, when you're able to still extend everyone you extend and you picked up Chris Clemens, Chris Clemens for Chandler Fry in a different sport, like that's a huge trade. Someone else got robbed. No offense to Chandler Fry, it's just Chris Clemens is a better player right now. MVP, I didn't see where they lost anyone.
Well,
they signed Eagle McMahon.
They
also signed Rookie of the Year Paul Kranz, and I think Rookie of the Year Silver Saarinen. So, but Eagle McMahon, I mean,
they're the biggest winner.
They're the biggest winner. Yes, they picked up Eagle McMahon.
They're going to they made the most noise. They're the biggest winner.
You reunited the Crush Boys.
They've been winners for a while now.
Yeah. Ever since they signed James Conrad, they have really, it's been since 2018, we've seen two companies do this. 2018, we saw Discraft pick up Paul Macbeth. And pre-2018, you had Innova, the giant. You had Prodigy. They had some good pros. They kind of were like hanging around. And then you kind of had everyone else. Like Trilogy had, I think Ricky might have been around in 2018, Ricky was with Latitude. But like that was just kind of the scope of the thing. Is everyone threw Innova, and then some people threw Trilogy, some people threw Prodigy, and then people had a Buzz or a Zone in their bag. Mm-hmm. And that was that. Then Discraft picks up Paul and Paige over those few years. And the next thing you know, Discraft is a giant and has like a massive team. That's the track MVP's on now. Is MVP was everyone picked on people who threw MVP. Meant you're a rec player. They pick up James Conrad. He wins a world title. It's like, oh, wow, during that time period, a lot of people did try MVP. It started to like spread a little bit more. You heard less about, just being a rec player brand. Picked up Simon last year, changed their brand completely now because now their brand is like in the forefront of a lot of people's mind. And now they've picked up Eagle. And then in addition, they picked up a lot of like ancillary players to go along, but those are the three-headed monster.
Yeah.
And they're able to keep James around. Simon's obviously on a 10-year deal. Eagles now on a 5-year deal. MVP's on the fast track to become, if they're not already, the Innova Discraft MVPs. They're now the three-headed monster at the top of disc golf. MVP is obviously the biggest winner this offseason. I don't even think that was really a question. Next one down is Prodigy. Didn't make much noise this offseason, but they lost Gannon Burr, they lost Alden Harris, they lost Parker Welk, and they lost Like Lawrenson. And really the only big extension I saw was Ezra Robinson.
Yeah.
That's a loss. That's a loss offseason.
Losing Gannon Burr, I think that the Gannon Burr situation is a real bummer because I think they probably could have kept him happy in before all the turmoil went down. They could have kept him happy, and he could have been a long-term Prodigy guy. And anytime you lose, it's not like he's in the minor leagues upgrading to the major leagues, right? Like they're a big company, so it's not like it was inevitable that Gannon was someday going to leave. They could have kept him around for a long time, and they weren't able to do that. So anytime that happens to you, that is a loss. Like that is a loser. That is just like it makes you a loser of the offseason if you lose your future. And obviously you still have Isaac and Ezra, and you've got some
Kevin Jones.
Got some players.
You got plenty of players.
There's
still,
players, but
you lost your guy.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Now, Discmania is an interesting one. They lost Eagle McMahon. They signed Gannon and Alden, and they were also able to promote Nicholas up to that team to join Gannon and Kyle. What are we thinking here?
I think that they are just looking at it, just saying, like, okay, net talent-wise, they actually win because I think they bring on with Alden and Gannon, they make up for and then some talent-wise. Net marketing-wise, they lose. Given their circumstances and the inevitability of Eagle leaving, because I just think it was going to happen, I think they actually are winners. Like I said, objectively, did they lose? Yes, but given their circumstance, I think they are winners because they did everything they had to do and that they could do to recoup. Because if they don't make this Gannon signing, they're toast. They bring in Gannon and Alden, and that is everything they could have done to make this as good as possible. Obviously, like I said, if you just look at it marketing-wise, objectively, it is a loss. But given their circumstance and given that Eagle was on his way out, and I don't really think they were going to keep him this time, I think they win in the sense of what they were able to do. And I think they have opportunity to get right back on track. I really do.
I think they're losers this offseason, mainly because you're right. They did the best they could, but doing the best you could doesn't mean you win every time. And this is a loss. Losing Eagle McMahon, I mean, you would have had to sign Simon back to tie that back together. So Gannon Burr, yeah, you gain talent, but at the end of the day, wins don't sell discs 90% of the time. Wins with marketing players sell discs, or just marketable players sell discs. Not that Gannon's not marketable. It's just he's not going to go do the marketing on himself. Eagle McMahon, and the big thing is,
I just think 5 years from now, there's a bigger chance for this to be more even than it looks right now.
The problem, though, is Eagle McMahon going and joining Simon. It's not necessarily like, can Gannon make up the hole that was created? It's like, how many Discmania throwers over these next 3, 4, 5 years are about to become MVP throwers? That's the loss there, because look at what, did Innova when they lost Paul, obviously a different scale, but look at everyone's bag that was an Innova thrower. Like, a lot of people who are Discmania throwers, we became Discmania throwers because we loved Simon and Eagle and like watching what they did. Also, you had Paul back in the day throwing Discmania. Like, that's where a lot of Discmania players come from. That doesn't mean I'm taking all Discmania plastic out of my bag because, you lost Simon and Eagle. No. But it does mean I'm curious, right? Like, I've already put more gyro in since Simon. I'm sure more gyro is going to enter my bag since Eagle. And if I had a mainly Discmania bag, which I don't, but a lot of people do, there's only one option of what's coming out if gyro's going in. To me, they're a loser of the offseason. They did the best they could to get as close to being a winner as possible, but they couldn't let Eagle walk.
The biggest thing to consider, well, I just didn't think they had a choice, but the biggest thing to consider
that's the only way for them to be a winner.
Who created Eagle McMahon's brand? Discmania. He was really young. He went in there. They created somebody that all the young players really latched onto. Who created Simon Lizott's brand? Discmania. Where is Gannon Burr now? Discmania. So we've seen it over and over again that they've been able to take a young, talented player and turn them into a very fun player.
The only problem with that theory, because it's a true statement that you just said, But what they were doing early Eagle, Simon, Eric Oakley, Avery Jenkins days, we haven't seen them do recently. Like the type of content that Discmania was responsible for putting out back then, the Avery and what was their road tour called? Remember that? You had like stamps, like in the game, deep in the game or something with Avery Jenkins. You had like, there's so many vlogs where they were traveling together in the RV, and like Discmania was responsible for so much of that. And they also were teaming up a lot with like Central Coast and Paul. That type of content is gone from the recent history, right? And so you have Alden Harris's vlogs is what's left.
Which is huge. Which probably gets more views than any of those videos did.
But not in the scope of how big disc golf is now compared to how it was then.
My thing
The
is,
percentages of disc golfers that saw those videos compared to the percentage of disc golfers, I've never seen an Alden Harris vlog once.
They get like 40,000 to 50,000 views a week a lot of the time.
Yeah, Simons are getting hundreds of thousands.
Yeah,
that's the new
we're not
bar.
talking about Simon.
I'm saying but Eagles on Simon's
That's
vlogs.
not the bar. That's literally the best. That is the best in all of disc golf.
And that's what I'm saying is those videos used to be at the best of all disc golf. When it was Simon, Avery, Eagle, when they were doing that
I've
stuff.
never even seen half of those videos.
But you've seen some of them.
The deep in the game videos I remember were with UC and Avery. They didn't even have Eagle in them.
But you saw the starter set challenge with, we literally just talked about it.
Nothing to do with Discmania.
They were in the Discmania RV. It was on Central Coast.
the first one.
But I'm saying like that type of content doesn't exist anymore. That's what built Eagle and Simon's brand. That type of content's gone.
But it can now. There's different content. Like Alden's vlogs are very
but now it's not Discmania building their brand anymore. That's Alden, is what I'm saying.
Right. So, but Discmania. So, and I always said Prodigy didn't do this, and Discmania needs to. They need to tap into those pieces of content, because I think that it's a really good platform. And the only thing you ever saw Prodigy related on those videos was like at the very end of the video or the very beginning, Alden be like, "Hey, my new disc is on sale." I think that Discmania would be very wise to try and tap into those, because all I'm saying is they have, like, those vlogs are very fun. They have Babcock too. They've got Babcock, Alden, and Gannon. They got three guys who are fun. They are really fun pieces of content together. I think they have a great opportunity, because at the end of the day, Simon and Eagle, they captured our generation, but like Simon's in his 30s. Eagle is getting older. Like 10 years from now, the landscape is going to look different. Like eventually those guys will get older, and like the younger generation always does latch on to the younger players. That's just kind of how it works. Like they like the younger players, and that does reset. So it is up to Discmania to create that platform and get that going. But like they have the recipe. I think Discmania, as long as they can hold it together, they have everything they need to get right back to where they were. Simon and Eagle are awesome, but like they're not one of a kind.
They gotta be pumping out more discs, I think.
Come out with what?
More discs, more molds.
Well, I think they come out as many as they can.
Yeah,
they're just limited right now. But
I don't think they're the biggest losers this offseason. But I think they're losers.
I just think they went into the offseason knowing Eagle was gone, and so from their offseason perspective, they're a winner. From the outside looking in, it is a net loss.
We're on the outside looking in.
Well, somewhat, but I'm just saying, in my mind, I'm thinking if I'm Discmania, I would consider the offseason.
No, I think they did as good as they could have.
Yeah.
I still think they're losers for the offseason.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I would say they're winners.
I didn't know if Connor had an answer. You look at your
I think it's definitely big to get Gannon. Not definitely big.
That's what they had to do. Yeah, they didn't have an option.
They also lost Eagle, who is pretty important. So.
Yeah, Lone Star was next. Now, some of the Lone Star we don't have questions or answers for, like Chandler Kramer. They lost him. We don't know what happened after that. He hasn't really answered anything. Chandler Kramer's gone. Emerson Keith was lost, and Josh Hofstra I put on the list because they lost their marketing guy, who was responsible for quite a bit at that company. But they signed Connor O'Reilly and Carter Aarons. So this is an interesting one. They were able to extend a few other players. But like if you go talent-wise, I think they went blow for blow. Realistically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The biggest problem with Lone Star is they got dominated in public perception because everything that we know about their situation is they basically had an internal meltdown coming from leadership. Everybody really liked Josh Hofstra. Like guys that left didn't have great things to say about it. So that's their biggest issue is from a net talent wise, like Carter Aarons is a really great signing. Like that's very solid.
Young up and comer.
But the problem is, I think people were already kind of iffy about Lone Star, the whole Ranger team thing. Like, we kind of thought that was funny, like whatever it is, what it is. But this did not help their case in the PR.
We still don't have true details because we've only really heard one side of the story, which is people leaving, which obviously people leaving are not going to say nice things about where they're leaving.
The abruptness in which they left and the things that I have heard says that it's not a great situation at Lone Star Discs.
But they were also able to extend Robert Burridge in there. And they still, have Nico LaCastro. They still have a lot of things.
They do have players.
So I would say they're very close to kind of break even, but I would lean loss.
The PR thing,
that's why I put Josh Hofstra on
nightmare.
there, is because like that was the one of like you can lose players, you know what I'm saying? And when you lose players, it is. But Josh Hofstra had become like the face of the brand on a marketing side. It was almost like when Dynamic lost Bobby Cool Daddy Slick Breeze, right? That exit still just kind of is weird to me.
Lindahl.
Well, they just lost Danny Lindahl, but the Danny Lindahl exit isn't as weird to me because Bobby Brown, I think is his true name. He was like the face of their marketing, and then he didn't leave the disc golf world, which is always an interesting one to me.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Like he just went, and now he's working with Clash discs and doing a lot of stuff with Clash. Now, I think a lot of it was that is very loud. A lot of it is he wanted to be close to family, I think. He wanted to kind of do his own thing, and he has more freedom with Clash, it seems, and he's working from home. So there is a lot with that. But Josh Hofstra, I feel, is in a similar boat where Josh Hofstra was very crucial to building Lone Star to where it is, right? And he was like a public figure with it, very similar to Cool Daddy Slick Breeze. He had, Disc Golf Answer Man with, what was the original... Robert McCall and Eric McCabe, and like Robert McCall's gone from Dynamic too. Like when you have these core guys leaving, that's when it starts to put red flags up. So I think if Chandler Kramer and Emerson Keith would have left and Connor O'Reilly and Carter Aarons would have came in, I probably would have said win, just because Carter Aarons has a lot of upside. But when you add in Josh Hofstra and a lot of like
there's been a lot going on Facebook. Like
a lot of
the owner getting in the mix, and it's
a lot of the things that were said upon exiting.
A lot of bridges
puts a
burned.
lot of PR question marks out there. So that's why I'm saying they're close to being broke even, but I'm a lean loss just because it didn't help their PR this offseason. But if Carter Aarons pops off next year and has a phenomenal year, they could be proven to be winners. Dynamic Disc lost Chris Clemens and Carter Aarons. I didn't see where they signed anyone. I was looking at the Ulti World contract.
They also got rid of Macy Villadiaz.
They also, that's a big one, lost Macy Villadiaz. That was not on, whatchamacallit.
I would say
Ulti World yet.
Yeah, I would say loss because they didn't do anything, and like you're a company that I would have liked to see just a little bit of something. Because Chris Clemens is like a pretty sizable loss. Like he's a big part of that brand. I would have liked to see like one signing to at least hang your hat on and be like, oh, it's a nice little signing.
Also,
there.
The details of Macy Villadiaz's exit, where she's not going to be able to do a full tour because she's pregnant.
Yeah, it was a little hairy.
And like she aired the details a little bit. It wasn't a PR nightmare. They aren't getting drugged through the mud by any means.
Look though,
but it wasn't a great look. So in not having any signings to kind of like counter that look or any big signings, you got to go with the loss there.
And losing Carter Aarons, like that's a young talent.
Yeah, it could be big.
It's a loss. It's a loss.
Yeah. Latitude 64 extended their core players, signed some new European talent. They're not the biggest winner of the offseason, but I don't think they're losers. They just kind of stayed where they are.
They're just kind of boring to me.
And Westside, the only move I saw is they extended Matteo.
Big win.
So that was a big win, just from the aspect of like he's one of the most fan favorite people, and like if you lose Matteo, you're not really left with much.
Him and Michael Jort against the world.
He's
still there.
Michael Jort. Shout out Jort. And then DGA, I didn't see them lose anyone, and they picked up Tristan Tanner, Jake Mon, Parker Welk, Eli Ezra, Sullivan Tipton, Evan Scott, and Macy Villadiaz.
Kind of a sneaky, really good offseason for
Great
DGA.
offseason for DGA.
They just keep signing people and being like, wow, but then like not really winning tournaments a ton.
Well, that was
mostly Kat's fault, I guess.
It was Trina Allen. I mean, she just didn't have the season that anyone expected her to have.
Yeah.
It was a shocking season.
Well, they brought in Marweed, and then he stunk.
Marweed did not have a great season either.
Stunk.
But hey, I don't think any of these players are like this season is going to be their season, because they did have Cole Redallen won Ledgestone.
They do it for Dolan though. That is a big one for them.
They have a relatively young core. Like none of all their players I would describe as like breaking into the game more so.
Dude, that
and so
their team's
DGA could be
crazy, actually. So the fact that they basically just like went on the list and were like, who are all the young like up talented players? I mean, Jake Mon, Sullivan Tipton, like they picked
them up. Yeah, so
I respect it. DGA,
DGA, you know, that this is a good rebuilding move.
It is.
I don't even know if it's a rebuilding, but like building move.
I think
they're getting blocks in place, and yeah, some of the blocks might not work out, but some of them could take off.
DGA right now, the way they're moving their roster, they remind me of that soccer team. There's always like a soccer team that is notorious for buying chip players for like $1 million and then selling them for $70 million 2 years later. I feel like DGA could be that company who gets these players and then those players go on to sign humongous deals. Unfortunately, DGA does not get those.
That's the only problem in disc golf, man, is you don't get any. There's no benefit for signing
unless
young
they get a
talent.
buyout though. They just need to get really long deals.
They need to get long deals,
release clauses,
sign everyone to 20-year deals with like 7-figure buyouts.
That basket money must be good to them.